The Witcher, Sirens of the Deep is out on Netflix. This is a new animated film set in the tragically ruined Netflix Witcher universe, directed by Kang Hae-chul, who also made the previous animated Witcher film, Nightmare of the Wolf. This has a bit of a confusing voice cast because for Jaskier and Yennefer it uses the same actors from the live action show, and for Geralt it uses the actor from the games, which I suspect has to do with Henry Cavill just leaving this universe behind entirely, for which honestly I can't blame him. This movie is a bastardized version, a bastardized adaptation of one of Sapkowski's short stories from the second book volume called A Little Sacrifice. The story finds Geralt and Jaskier in a seaside town of Bremervoort, where they meet Jaskier's old friend and fellow bard S.C. Davin. The three of them become embroiled in local tensions between the humans and the merfolk, who live under the surface of the sea, which has everyone itching for a fight and perhaps even an open war, if not for the human prince and the mermaid princess being in love and the two of them sort of attempting to hold on to peace. So I'll be honest, I started watching this thinking, alright, it is a bit weird that they're already changing the chronology of the story with the very opening scene, but let's see where it goes. And then the opening credits started with produced by Lauren Schmidt Hisrich, and at that point I loudly groaned at the screen because I knew it was time for yet another act of cultural vandalism conducted by this demonic woman on one of my most beloved book franchises of all time. Everything she touched so far when it comes to The Witcher, the show, the live action prequel movie, or was it a miniseries? Can't even remember at this point in time. The animated stuff, everything has been poisoned by her baffling and sort of difficult to understand need to change what works and change what was beloved by the fans and make up your own shittier, more American, more generic version of the story. This is unfortunately no exception, and the only merit that the movie has as a piece of, I'm reluctant to call it art, it's a fascinating example of how a piece of source material can be completely misunderstood, with the filmmakers missing the entire point and doing the reverse of what the short story is beloved for. So I think it's kind of an interesting example for sort of history books for people to be able to go back and look at them side by side, the short story and the movie, and see just how wrong you can go. So I will start with the short story to be able to explain why I hated the film so much, and there will be spoilers obviously. So the original story was one of my least favorite when I first read the Witcher books as a teenager, because it has decidedly less action and explores instead the complex world of feelings and relationships instead. I have since grown to appreciate it more and even reread it before the movie. Loved it this time around. So the story in the book has three main components, three main plot lines, in order of importance. The first one is the doomed love story between Geralt and Essie. She immediately falls in love with him. He has some feelings for her, but at the same time this forces him to really realize and reevaluate the depth of his love for Yennefer, and the struggle of whether he can ever forget about the sorceress and love anyone else, or is she his destiny, for better or perhaps worse. It's about this sort of heartbreaking realization that here is another person who would be fantastic for you, who loves you, but who you do not love back the same way. And if you want to be honest and fair, you have to reject her. It's a fairly mature and heartbreaking story, especially the epilogue ending revealing what happens to Essie afterwards, which is possibly one of the saddest scenes in all of the books, honestly. The second plotline is a bit of a mirror held to this, and it's the love story between Prince Agloval and Shinaz. In the book, Agloval is the sole ruler of this shithole town, and he's a bit of an asshole. Shinaz is not a princess, and their story is basically a Sapkowski staple, which means it's a fun riff on a well-known fairy tale where he, in this case, the Little Mermaid, and you know, he loves to take these stories and do his own spin on them. And in his version, the lovers' central problem is that of logistics, is that neither of them wants to do the little sacrifice of turning into the member of the other race, and they can't seem to be able to find compromise. Until at the very end, Shinaz suddenly shows up with legs, saying happily that she decided, the argument was silly, love is more important, and a friendly sea witch agreed to help her. This plotline is kind of funny and doesn't really carry a lot of the weight for the drama. As I said, it serves a bit more as a counterweight to Geralt and Essie, and as a reason for them to have some of the conversations that they do. And finally, there's the monster storyline, which in this case is really just in the background, with Geralt investigating the murders of the fishermen and finding out about the existence of the intelligent fishman race, which in the short story seems to have little or nothing to do with the mermaid herself. Crucially, the book ends this plotline inconclusively. Geralt remarks that maybe the attacks will continue, maybe humans will go to war, maybe they'll conquer the sea in time, but he takes no part in that and he just leaves town. It's very much just an excuse and a reason for Geralt to be there so that the Essie plot can happen. What the movie does is the complete reverse order of importance of these plot lines. It focuses mainly on the war, on the open war between humans and merfolk. Adds a human king and his bastard son warlord, adds the mermaid royal family, adds an evil witch that is literally Ursula from the Disney animation, complete with singing a song at one point. What the fuck was that? And the story as a result becomes much more focused on action, battles, violence, and a super generic plot. The second plotline becomes Agloval and Shinaz, who have a little bit more to do in this version, are changed completely as characters, and have a plot twist ending which is visible from a mile away and actually makes the story worse, in my opinion. And then, as an afterthought, there is some tension between Essie and Geralt. They have 2 short conversations, and then they fuck, and then she says, "Oh, I know you don't love me, but it's okay, I never wanted you anyway, I'm not interested in you as a partner." Which made me almost shout at my television screen, "No, you are interested! That's the entire point. That's the whole tragedy." So really what the movie does is spit on everything that Sapkowski has written, instead doing their own unoriginal, uninspired, poorly written, childish version. It fucking sucks. And to be fair, at one point I stopped and I asked myself, okay, I'm suffering, but can I imagine watching it as a non-book reader with a fresh eye? Would it still be not good? No, the answer is not at all. It wouldn't be good because the writing, even in isolation, is terrible. The plot ceases to make sense the more it goes on. The dialogue is witless and charmless, modern Hollywood drivel. There's a scene where Jaskier calls Geralt a softy. That's literally a quote. At that point I knew there was no hope at all. I also think the animation style is bad, or at least, maybe not the style itself. The sort of drawings are not bad themselves, they're just very generic and look like tons of other stuff on Netflix, but the way action is animated in movement is horrible. Everyone is an Olympic level jumper for some reason, and especially Geralt just keeps doing these weird high somersaults in the air. Like, what even is this? So yeah, I'm not sure why I got pulled into this crap again, but right now I'm making a promise to myself to stay away from all Witcher-related content made by Netflix, whether it's live action or animated. It's too much for me. It's too painful to see them massacre my boy. My advice to anyone else is to also ignore this pile of steaming shit.